Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life. This is the podcast that's been going on for 5.5 years, where we explore how to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your gifts, your talents, and your life experience. Recently, in September, I started a new Thursday for coaches only, talking about the effect that AI is or will or might have. And in the last few episodes, we've been meeting with two coaches every Thursday, and we're going to continue to do that for another year or so, or however long, to explore what AI and the large language models and the other iterations of that stuff are doing to the coaching industry. So welcome to the show, Bina and Misty.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So happy to have you. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the things we chatted about ahead of time, about just opinions about what's AI is doing and not doing, and how you're using it or not using it, and what you see as the future in this industry. All right, so let's start with Misty. I'll just ask you first, since you happen to be on the left side of the top. Are you using, and if you are, how are you using AI in your coaching practice?
I am using AI. So for the last 14 years, I had a marketing agency. So I was helping entrepreneurs implement marketing strategies that work. And, as soon as AI became available, it was a tool that I started using in my business to basically deliver more in less time. So I'm absolutely using it.
So tell me a little bit about how you're using it, or tell our audience a little bit about how you're using it. And are you excited about it? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Is it excited? You're glad it's here? Tell me a little bit more about how you feel about it.
Yeah, so I started using ChatGPT, the second that it became available. And I often talk about my journey to adopting to AI. And I think it'll apply to your listeners because there's kind of 5 phases I went through. The first phase was denial. And my thought process in the denial phase was I don't have to worry about this right now. I don't want to have to worry about this right now. Because when I started hearing about the tools and everybody that was starting to use them in my industry, I don't consider myself an early adopter. I don't replace my computer or my phone until it just simply doesn't work. I'm not the one that races out to go get the new technology. So I stayed in denial probably longer than I should have. And maybe some of your listeners right now are in that phase. The second phase that I went into was acceptance. And this is when I started to realize, I said, okay, this is real. I'm starting to see tools everywhere, and I should probably be using them in my marketing agency. And then the third phase is what I call adoption. And that's when I started realizing, okay, AI isn't the enemy. It's kind of like the evolution to where things are going. And I started using AI, specifically ChatGPT. It became my creative partner in helping me brainstorm, automate, serve my clients more and in less time. And at the end of the day, I was able to deliver a lot more value. And then here's the interesting thing. When I share this with clients, I'm just like you. At first, I resisted it. Then I started to accept it, and then I started to adopt it, and I started realizing the value that it brought to my business. And then I regressed. And that's when fear started creeping in. It was the fear of being replaced by the thing I just learned how to use. It was the fear of losing the human side of things, the fear of everybody feeling and sounding the same. All of those same fears that a lot of people feel when they start to adopt AI into their businesses. And then after regression, though, if you can push through that, that fear base, then you start to look at AI and start to think about your business in terms of realignment. So instead of asking, like, how can I get AI to do this task for me? I started asking myself, how can I use AI to make me better? Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like, I don't know, the evolution to me, adopting AI into my business. And I could go into all the different tools that I use, but I think a lot of listeners are in one of those 5 phases right now, and they need to recognize where they're at and just know that if they can push through each one of those phases and get to the realignment, they can actually create a business that provides way more value than they ever thought possible.
Yeah, I thank you, and I agree with that. I think I didn't jump in right away either. I heard about it, and I can't even remember what happened. Something happened. I don't know if it was a conversation or somewhere I was that I thought, I need to look at this. I need to not pretend it's not happening or whatever. I was just sort of ignoring it. And I did the same thing. And I don't know, I like the 5 phases, ignoring it and then acceptance and then adoption and regression. I thought that was interesting. Start worrying about what it is and then realize more. Bina, are you using AI? And if you are, how, and what do you think about it?
I am using AI, and I actually am from the true millennial state. So, I think I've gone through every single tech knowledge. I mean, I was writing papers, and then the typewriter, from the typewriter, the computer, from the computer, the telephone, so I think for my generation, like, I didn't have the denial phase. I actually had more of the curiosity phase. Like, initially it was like, "Ooh, what is this? What's happening here? And where's this going?" Because that's just where in every tech world, it's always been that curiosity phase. And I do agree with the levels of it, because I think the curiosity, like, it went to realignment for us super quick, because in my world, that's like, we don't have this little denial, push, pull. What is this? What is that? It's just this, hey, there's this hot tool out there. And if I can do something quicker and faster, why not? Right. And, coming from writing on a typewriter and learning how to use the typewriter. And then when the first computer came out, like, it was like, oh my God, this is faster. Right. And then Google came out. And then when Google came out, like the whole Bing and Google, whatever it was, the first ones, it's like, what do you mean I can search anything, anywhere on a thing, and it just populates for me? You're telling me I don't have to go to the library and search and go to the columns and do things? So I think, like, the curiosity in my world has developed over this past 41 years. And so I use it more for, like, if you can do my job faster, still being me, then let me utilize this for social media content. Let me utilize this to create a business proposal, implementing whatever I need, and then writing it for me. Not that it's taken away my thought process, because it's still my brain dump that I place into it. And then it just formulates it for me to a level where I'm like, oh, okay, you just saved me 15 hours, right? And now it's like, okay, let me go back and make it, I say Bina-isms, right? Let me go back and make it into my brand, into my voice, and making comes in. So it's not like I'm utilizing it to an extent where it's like a one and done, but I utilize it where, if you can save me 15, 20 hours, then I'm all on board. Right. So it's interesting on how, like, some people go through this denial phase, which I guess I didn't really understand that till, like, right now, but I was just super curious. Like, and now, like, we integrate a content creator bot, like, into my coaching business. So my coaches have a bot that they can utilize. So, they're able to put in their business plan and all the prompts that goes into it. And then it just helps them guide, because it helps people go from feeling stuck to unstuck very quickly in the creativity part of it. And I think that's where the alignment comes in. And one of the things that I coach around is, if you are using AI, we really truly want to make sure that it's in true alignment to who you truly are.
So did I hear you say that you've created a custom GPT that helps people do stuff?
Yeah. And I asked ChatGPT how to do that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Are you using GPT-4 or 4.1 as the base engine, or?
Yep. Yep, the highest one. So every time a new one comes out, we are in a paid container. So every time there's a new version that comes out, it's automatically integrated. And I can see it from the first one where you ask questions and it was like, it asked you like weird things back. You're like, what is this? Right. And now it's like, if you were to put in certain prompts about you, your personality, like if you just typed in your entire life story and you ask that prompt to be like, I want you to create 10 really creative 10 podcast questions, for example, it will like spit out like really creative, like this is what I would ask you on a podcast, knowing your life story. And it's not that it's taking your information away. All it's doing is just opening it up for me. It opens up new pathways of things that I would not have even co-created versus like, wow, okay, I didn't even think about that. That's an amazing question. Maybe I should ask that to somebody.
Yeah.
And then it's co-creating these new pathways of like creativity of like, oh, what else can I do now? And, you know, when I'm asking ChatGPT, and I use this a lot for like social media and a lot for certain marketing, actually, it's like, here is my business plan. What are some pain points that I can put up that is going to be compelling for my audience? Because sometimes with marketing, it's about how you perceive world, and exactly it's the opposite. It's how other people perceive you. And sometimes, especially in coaching world, it's like, oh, but I put this out, but no one's talking to me back. And I'm like, but are you really hitting their pain point? Are you really talking to that? And I do know that, you know, AI has its limitations. It's not going to have this human connection that the three of us are even interacting with right now. But if we were to take this transcript and place this into AI and say, hey, can you make a very powerful storyline out of this? It's going to come out and it's going to create something. And it just saves all three of us time for sitting here and typing it up for each other. It's amazing in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. So those are really both interesting and creative descriptions of how to use it. If you think about what it's changing, and we're talking specifically about coaching because it's going to change a lot of things in a lot of businesses and stuff. What do you think the dangers are for coaches in terms of what chat? I guess where I'm thinking about is when I wrote the book, I ask it, and I ask it a bunch of different ways and different times. Like, given everything you do and that you're getting better at doubling your capacity every 2 or 3 months, what's the danger to coaches? Like, what danger do you see for the coaching profession? Either one of you, it doesn't matter.
I'll go first. I'm seeing it firsthand every single day. So I've shifted my business away from the agency model where I was implementing the marketing strategies into a different environment and a different approach. I won't go into all the details of that, but I'm still coaching clients one-on-one. And so one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is I'll go and I'll ask a client, because if you're a true coach, you know that your job is not to have all the answers. Your job is to ask the right questions so that they discover what they already know themselves, right? To help them discover the answers within themselves, a true coach. And so what happens is when I ask people questions today, they'll say, hold on a second, and we'll be in the middle of a coaching call, and I can see them typing away. And at first, when they started doing it, I thought they were responding to emails and stuff like that, kind of getting offended. And I called a few of them out, and they were like, hold on, I'm asking ChatGPT. And I'm like, you don't know the answer to this? Well, yeah, but I want to see what G says. So my biggest fear, and the thing that I see the most, is that AI isn't necessarily going to take all of our jobs, like a lot of coaches believe to be true. It's taking away our ability to think. And that is a huge danger, because, you know, it's not using AI that's the biggest risk right now. I think a lot of people have pushed through the denial phase, and they're now in the acceptance phase, at the very least. But they're depending on it so much that they actually don't even trust their own responses or own ideas now. And that has happened so quickly. It's alarming. It's alarming that we can't answer simple questions and have simple dialogue without you actually having to ask a robot that knows nothing about you, your experience, or your life for the response. That's what's scary.
So let me dive into that a little bit. So asking people questions is a tried and tested way that coaches make people think and come up with ideas even if they don't know the answer. The act of exploration and excavation in their own mind and experience and thinking is the developing opportunity. It's how they develop their own thinking. Maybe they did know the answer, or they can think of it, or an answer at least in the dialogue with the coach. One of the things that I saw in my analysis is that the LLMs in general, but Chatty is getting so good at asking all those questions.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's so I agree with your danger. One of the things I read in my research was it isn't about, it's about the lack of development that we experience. So if we have chat do some magical thing for us, and even if we tweak it a bit, it's not the same as the work that I would have gone through and who I would have become in the soul searching and work that it took to do that thing. So I have chat write me a book. It's not the same. It might be a great book. It has nothing to do with who I became as I did the research and thought through how I wanted to express myself. So that changes who I am. And I think that thing is what you're pointing to in terms of, I don't even trust myself. I'll just have it. It writes better than I do. And so cool, it'll sound good, and then I'll sound good. I'm still the same person I was before I wrote the book.
But here's the problem with that is
It
that
is a problem.
it's going to sound like everybody else too. And you're going to be able to know, people will, and they're already spotting it. They already know when it's not a real human experience behind the information that you're sharing. And Bina hit on the nail on the head. There are so many tools out there that we can use that can help us expand on our ability to be able to stay true to what a coach is. A coach asks key questions to help the person discover the answer that they have within themselves. ChatGPT will prompt you, do you want me to do this now, or do you want me to do that now? But the tools that Bina was speaking to, I use a tool, it's called FormWise. Basically, it's in simplest terms, because I'm not super techie myself, but the way I understand it, I don't program, I use the programs.
Right.
It's an overlay over top of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT and tools alike are basically, it's a glorified tool for asking, questions. But if you don't know the questions to ask, which is the core of what coaches, the whole reason why coaches exist, people don't know what questions to ask themselves to dig deeper into the problem they're trying to solve. That's what coaches bring to the table. So if you can use a tool like FormWise and actually feed FormWise the questions that they should be asking themselves, now what you're doing is you're combining an AI experience with the coach's experience and being able to ask the key and critical questions to get them to come up with the answer. Am I making sense on that?
Yeah, you're making sense. We're gonna dive into that pretty deep, because I got some thoughts about that. But I want to, Bina, what do you see? Do you see dangers for coaches with ChatGPT and its evolution, and how fast it's getting better at? My experience is it gets really good at even asking the questions.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to. I've seen some coach models that have been built that use empathetic language, that ask powerful questions, that point out inconsistencies in the conversation, and that do a pretty good job. And that's one of the things that makes me think that coaches, the big middle, there's a space for elite, but the big middle is going to be gutted and gone. But anyway, Bina, I'm interested in your thoughts about the danger that chat might or does or doesn't pose for the coaching business.
It can go either way. I think it's a self-perception based on this and how do you utilize it. So there is a new app that is coming out shortly around using 3 principles around AI. And you can ask these questions, and it's really giving you empathetic questions back, just like a coach, right? And if you train AI to a level of doing that, then you're able to serve more people in a very short period of time. That there is good in that, right? Now, the negative side of that, it doesn't have the human connections. You are still talking to a screen. You are still talking or chatting, and you're looking at a phone or a device, and we're not having those connections, heart-to-heart conversations with the human being, which is very vital in human life. You know, ChatGPT is great. I'm not going to knock it off. I'm not going to say there's all these different tools and regulations you can have around it. And at the same time, it's just like when you just need a hug and you just want somebody to sit there and support you and cry in presence, ChatGPT will not offer that at all, you know? And I think that's where, yes, it's going to be incorporated into a lot of coaching industries. It's not going to take away your job. I think what coaches have to do is they have to embed it somehow, some way, and they have to level up their client journey with it, right? And then also offer that support where it's like, hey, I'm going to give you this particular support, and also you need to have some sort of human connections involved with that, or you give them the choices. And it really is going to go back to the client experience of like, nope, I just want to be here because this new generation is very much into Chat GPT and things. And that part does scare me because they just don't understand what the human connections are. They're not able to have conversations in real time and go into networking events, and they become, and I'm going to say this in a very non-political way, they can become very antisocial. And I think that's when we're talking about confidence, when we talk about our body imaging, our everything else that comes with that, you know, is not being foreseen because it's hiding behind something. And when we're talking about self-discovery and we're talking about evolution and all these different things, our mind needs those physical like things, just like when we were in high school and, you know, the Mean Girls situation, right? It's like, oh, that's a high school thing. But guess what? All these children has to experience some sort of level of that so your brain can develop in a very natural way. Right. And our frontal cortex is not developed until we're in our 20s. And I think what's happening, and that's the scary part that I see with Chat GPT, is how is this affecting our long-term, like our generations to come? How is this frontal cortex that's not being fully developed from these emotional connections, and they're utilizing this with Chat GPT? Now, in the coaching world, I can see it being developed and level up, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Because I come from that generation. And also making sure that all of our clients, if they are utilizing it, what are we utilizing it for? What is the purpose that we're utilizing it? And is it in true alignment, which I like what Misty said, is it in true alignment for what we are co-creating? Because if it's not, if it's like, hey, I'm depressed and I want to use ChatGPT to help me to get rid of a therapist, yeah, I think that's wrong. Like,
Yeah,
that's not going to help you. Right?
There's different degrees of coaches, obviously, right. and in terms of what their specialty is. I'm a marketing coach. Like, I'm not getting into this, and it's very good at prompting you. Or do you want to include this in your social post? Do you want to include this in your video script? Right. Where it's really falling short, and I think this is a gigantic danger. I don't typically speak to it because I don't live in this space. Is when someone turns to a Chat GPT for emotional support, like Bina said, and because right now the way that these tools are designed, they're designed to be agreeable. So if I'm not in the right frame of mind and I'm thinking suicide, I'm thinking this is the end of civilization. If I'm a doomsday thinker at this moment, and I start turning to AI to support my ideas and my thinking, we're opening up a very dangerous can of worms because AI today is supportive in nature. So when I say I'm thinking about committing suicide, and this has been documented, I don't have access to the resources. We could always get those later. But if I'm thinking about suicide and I'm turning to ChatGPT or a tool of alike, and I'm saying, what do you think? And it's going to be agreeable to me. It's going to lead me down a very destructive path. So
yeah, I've seen some of that.
Gigantic.
And there's been like OpenAI has been sued.
So let me ask a different question. I want to push on this really hard for a minute. I think there's space. I really do believe 95% of coaches as it is implemented today won't have anything to do. And here's why, and you guys can disagree, but I do think there's something left, and it has to do with this, the human piece of it, that I can't bleed, that it came back and told me about, right? I can't bleed. But most of coaching, as it is implemented today, as evidenced by the fact that coaches today most of them don't make very much money, meaning they don't provide value that people are willing to pour money on, aren't creating the circumstances of that super high value in the circumstance, in the container of coaching. So I'm going to say, I talk to a lot of coaches, not only here, but just in general. Most of my clients aren't that, but I end up in conversations with a lot of them. And here's something I hear all the time. Well, I can help other people with their fill in the blank, their self-doubt and their problems and their negativity, and I can help all that. But me, I'm struggling with this and that, and I can't figure out how I can help other people solve those problems, but I can't this, that, and the other. And to me, that is a giant red flag. And here's why. To me, that's like taking health advice from a doctor who's got to go out every 5 minutes and take a smoke break.
Do you mind if I comment on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The minute a coach, and I'm going to just call this out as it is, if they don't have, do you mind if I shouldn't use bad language on this conversation?
I don't care.
Okay. Well, I have to ask for permission. If they don't have their shit together, they should not be coaching.
Right.
And 90 million% of the ones that are coaching are. That's my point in the example. They are not the embodiment. When they walk into a room, the truths that they are, quote, helping their clients with are not leaking out of their eyes and running out of their pores. They don't change the app, and that's all that's going to be left. The only people that are going to be left in the coaching business are going to be really valuable. They'll be highly paid, and they're going to be the ones that are truly the product of the product. Right, they are and live the embodiment, and 90% of them are not.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And I really do believe that AI is going to filter those people out. And I'm not going to lie to you, they shouldn't be coaching or getting paid for it anyways, because if you can't... Sorry.
Today, no, it's okay. I want you to finish. If you can't, and they talk about a thing over there. They talk about that thing over there. In other words, they read or learned or took some classes or got some certifications about this or that modality, and they talk about that thing over there. And that's valuable. But at the level that really makes change and matters, that isn't valuable, and it doesn't last very long. And that whole middle, and I say 95%, but whatever the number is, that's going to be gone. And that's going to present a real challenge for coaches. And I think there's 3 reasons. One is the head in the sand problem, which Misty, you alluded to. I'm going to pretend this isn't happening, or it's happening slowly, and I'm going to pretend that tsunami's not coming. Okay, cool. Right. You're dead. Number 2 is what I call the ante problem. Think about being in a casino. And there's lots of $10 blackjack tables, and all those blackjack tables are full of robots. And the only place that there's left for a person, me or you, to go sit down is in the high roller room, or the ante's $10,000. So in my mind, the ante to be a good coach just went up 10,000 or 1,000 times. And the third problem is being the true product of the product all the time, not a jacket you put on, but a place that you are in terms of who you actually are. That's hard work.
It's a lot of work.
And so hard work, the ante's gone up 1,000 times, and head in the sand. That's the filter. And that's going to be the great sifting, as it were, in the business.
And I do agree with you on that, because a lot of coaches in general, only 5% of the coaches actually do make it to the extent of whatever success means to whoever is listening, correct? And it's a practice. Like, you're going to be faced something over and over and over again. And there's only still, if you think about it even now, there's only still a handful of coaches that are actually coaching full time and evolving over the time, because they're still doing the work on themselves. And that's where I think AI in general can be a lack of, or a devil's advocate, right? You do need a coach to still be accountable, even for myself. Like, I need to practice what I embody, so help whoever I preach. And that's where I think AI is going to have a very big disconnect, again, because of that human connection. You know, you can do the middle ground work, and I can create a bot, I can create this, I can create all these different tools. And at the same time, and it goes back to what Misty said, if I'm not in alignment with what my end goal is or what my global impact is, you know, AI can consume a lot of what you're calling this middle ground. Absolutely. You know, but that human connection, and, you know, given the analogy of robots, yeah, because I personally would look for, this is me, myself, and I look for that human connection. I'd rather you be behind the table or Misty being next to me versus me talking to a robot, you know? And I think it goes back to this perception of, well, what are you truly creating in your world? Where is this? What perception is being created, and what's the real reality behind it? And I think what's happening is we're hiding the real reality behind a perception of what AI can or cannot create, because we're just dissolving the reality. And what we're facing with is, you know what? I am depressed. I have this problem. I'm not enough. All these different things that we tell ourselves. And now here AI is supporting it and or covering it up, saying, you know what? You are this great person. You are doing this. You are this $1 million person. But in reality, it's all just really fake in this realm. And we're really not truly what we are, because we're out of alignment.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm writing the book, is to call that out. Misty, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I want to chime in on this, because I know there may be some new coaches that are either thinking about entering into the field, or maybe they're new to the field, or whatever, or they've been in the field. I know I've been through this myself personally. I mean, doing this, you can't be on this earth 50 years and not have a ton of experiences and a ton of advice that you can give someone else and share with someone else through your own learned experiences, right? Mm-hmm. You just can't. You can't be on this earth 10 years and not have experiences, okay? Right. I think we can all agree with that. And I think the danger, and I hear this all the time, I've heard this for years and I've said this for years, the danger is that we, the 50-year-old me, can get on my high horse and say, well, if you don't have the experience I have, and if you haven't been around 50 years and you haven't walked in my shoes and you haven't done what I've done, you don't have a place in this field. And that's not true. That is not true, because it can sound like that when you hear it, because, you know, there's a gal I started listening to a couple years ago. Her name's Tanya Spangolo, and she had gastric bypass. And when she first started her channels in social and started sharing her journey, and I don't know that she considers herself necessarily a coach, although I do know that she has calls with people and shares her experience. You know, she had just had the gastric bypass, had lost a little bit of weight, but she had not arrived. Because I think there's a danger in us speaking to, if you haven't arrived, if you don't have your shit together, which I've said for many years, by the way, and I'll still say it in some capacity, but you have to start where you are and lead from where you are. You don't need to have arrived. She didn't have to. She just recently hit her weight loss goal, and she's been doing this for several years.
Yeah.
So if you're a coach listening in and you just heard us talk about, you need to have your shit together, you need to do this and you need to do that. Yes, you need to start where you are and lead from where you're at. When I started my coaching business in marketing, I had a marketing degree, but I was taught how to run radio ads, billboards, big brands, Coca-Cola, the Walmarts of the world. And then when I started my coaching business, Facebook was just getting started and businesses were starting to use the platform. Nobody had experience. Nobody understood really how to utilize the platform to have success. I didn't know how to do it, but I did know how to set up a Facebook page. And that's where I started. Let me show you, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner. Let me show you how to set up your Facebook page. Did I have all the answers? No. But I started where I was. I'm not putting on a coat of saying I've made $1 bazillion on Facebook. I'm not lying. I think we all know, don't lie.
Right.
Don't lie, but lead from where you are, wherever that is. If you just lost 5 pounds, if you just had surgery and you can walk someone else through the surgery path you just went through. Yeah. There's a space for you. So and that's where
in my world, when people are utilizing Chat GPT, for an example, right? They're like, I don't know how to use this. It's like, well, I've been doing this now for a couple of years. I don't know a lot about a lot. I know a little about a lot, right? I know a little bit about a lot.
Yes.
And so it's like teaching them how to incorporate that is key. And I do think that's where coaching is still going to thrive because of those. That's where I think coaching is really going to thrive, is like those life experiences, right? So you've done Facebook, like a Facebook page. I didn't know what a Facebook page was till 5 years ago, right? I mean, I didn't know. Because I wasn't in the business world, right? I was at bedside saving lives. And so it's like, there's still a lot of learning tools that I think when you're talking about with Kellan, when we're talking about, there's always going to still, yes, some of it's going to dissolve and people who don't know what they're doing are not going to know, they're not going to know. But for the ones that have that curiosity of I want to learn even a little bit from a Misty, from a Kellan, those ones are going to still really, truly still thrive.
Yeah, well, and you can use Tanya Spingolo as a perfect example. I can go to ChatGPT saying, hey, G, I call him G just because I speak really fast and it's a slur and I spit. But I say, hey, G, I'm thinking about having gastric bypass. I'm not, but I'm just saying, in theory, I'm thinking about having gastric bypass. Tell me, what to expect. And G's going to give you a response. But there's nothing that replaces me turning, if Tanya was a friend of mine or a trusted source. The human connection where I can turn to her and say, hey, Tanya, listen, I know these are the steps and I know this is the procedure and I know what I can expect, but what was your experience?
Yeah.
How did this, what are the tips and tricks and things that you can share with me on a human level, the experiences? ChatGPT does not have an experience. Can I say that with clapping?
Yes.
It does not have an experience. It does not bleed. It does not have surgery. It does not push out babies. It does not do any of that. It can tell you the procedure. It can tell you the processes. It can share someone else's experience. If you say, hey, I have a friend who's famous who had a baby, tell me what their experience was. It can reiterate what it said, but it does not have the same experience. And that is the thing. I think we when we become so dependent on G being our voice to say things pretty, we're losing our story. And that's the problem.
That is a huge problem.
So I'm going to say something.
I agree with you.
Look at me, I'm passionate because I see this every day.
This is what I wanted to call. I would go so far as to say, if you're really going to coach, the only thing you can coach is where you've been. You can't really coach anywhere else.
You can't.
100%.
You can't.
All that becomes is I'm talking about that thing over there.
Exactly.
But
which is what G does.
Yeah, that's not the truth. The truth of your lived experience is what lives in the 5%.
Correct.
And so and all the rest, which is talking about that thing over there, however good it is, and I'm going to give you an example. Bina, you're dying to say something, so say it.
I am. So it's the experience part, because I do a lot of corporate wellness. And I've closed over $10 million in sales, different organizations. Everybody always asks me, how do you do it? They'll go, I wrote this proposal and I've done this, and now what do I do with it? And the number one thing I tell people is have a conversation. ChatGPT cannot teach you how to have the conversation. They can't teach you how to get into a room where it matters. They can't teach you, like, going into a networking event and having an amazing conversation with Misty or with you. And me and you've done this before, Kellan, right? And we've left that impression of like, oh my God, I'm curious to learn more about you and about who you are, where you came from. And now I'm curious to learn what you're doing in this world. ChatGPT cannot teach that.
Well, it can give you the questions to ask. It can't give you the guts to do it.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's my point. Like,
it doesn't create the connection. You all know what it's like to walk into a room or to be in a room with your back to the door and somebody walks in who's angry and you can feel the energy and you don't even have to turn around and see them. So the truth that's left, all of the stuff that isn't grounded, let's put it this way, what I'm hearing you say, and I agree with, is it's not grounded in the truth of the human experience is going to be used by the robots that are masters of the not in the human experience. Everything
it's a wealth of knowledge.
Everything that is knowledge in the human experience is going to be what we've got left to work with.
And that's the thing, though, Kellan, is that when you talk about the coaches who are not succeeding, it is because they've taken on someone else's process. They've learned someone else's procedure.
That thing over there.
That thing over there. It's the copycatters, the cookie cutters. Oh my God.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere. You have to adopt a learning in order to take the first step, in order to learn your own experiences. So there's not, again, I want to say this loud and clear, because I think we live in a world where we're like, if you're not 50 with a ton of experiences, and my experiences, you don't have a place in this world. And that is not true.
I interviewed a dude on this podcast, several hundred episodes ago. He was 23 years old. He grew up in the projects in I forgot what city. And by the time we got done, I was blown away. And it takes a lot to blow Kellan away. Trust me. Yep. I was like, dude, I love it. Your lived experience in the short number of minutes you've been around compared to the rest of us geezers. I'll speak for me, not for you guys. I'll be 70 in December. So it has nothing to do with age. That came from his lived experience. And you do have to be trained and adopt a methodology. You know what? My experience with this, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Okay, when Johnny Carson left The Tonight Show and Jay Leno took over, I wasn't a regular watcher of Carson. I watched him occasionally. But I did watch the first nights of Leno. And it was really obvious that he was trying really hard and doing good, and he did not yet own that stage. Right. I watched him 2 years later, and he owned the stage.
Yeah.
Same jokes, same stuff. There was that thing, and that thing is all that's left. And that's the thesis. That's all that's left, because all the rest of it will be gone.
Yeah, if you think that you can use a ChatGPT or an AI tool, doesn't matter what it is, if you can use a tool to create your experiences, that's where you're going to be left in the dust, and everybody is going to call you out on your crap. They're going to call you out on being trained by AI. But if that's where you're starting, and you say to yourself, I want to start a business, or I want to start a coaching business in this space. What should I do, ChatGPT, to get started? It's going to give you the steps and procedures, but it isn't until, and you can use those steps and procedures to go work with a person, work with your first client, work with your second client. And then all of a sudden you have 5 clients, 10 clients, 20 clients, 100 clients under your belt. And now you're going to turn less to ChatGPT for guidance and more into leaning into your own experiences through the work that you've done. And that is the key. That is the future of AI. The people who will succeed in this industry is the ones that doesn't allow AI to overspeak their own experiences. Like if I ask you, if you've been doing this for 10 years and I ask you a question and you have to go ask ChatGPT for the freaking answer,
You have a problem.
you have gone too far deep into utilizing this AI tool. You know the answer. Speak from your own heart. Now, that doesn't mean I love to use ChatGPT. I've been married 31 years. My husband and I have been together since we were 15 years old. I do not, he says it, he just said it yesterday to me. He goes, are you going to finish the sentence or do I have to? Because I'll start a sentence. I have menopause brain. So like I forget words and I forget ideas and I forget where I was going with it. And so he'll finish my sentence. ChatGPT is great for a great tool to turn to for that. When you have learned experiences and you're saying, hey, G, I had this experience, but I can't quite get my finger on how to share that with other people in a meaningful and deep way. Can you help me with that? You know what I mean? So what you're doing is you're leaning on these AI tools to share your experiences.
It's more like what you're stating is that it's like a resource.
Yes.
Use it like a resource, not utilize it as a first line of defense.
Yes.
Is what I'm hearing you state.
And so I guess the way I agree with all of you, everything you've said, it makes things faster. You said that to start with. Why wouldn't you use it if it does things faster? But it isn't ever going to take away the real work of becoming human.
It shouldn't.
No.
If it does, then nobody will hear you, because it's going to sound like everybody else that's doing the same thing. But when you bring your own experiences to the table and use it to do things faster, to dive deeper into it, to explain it in a better way, right? Explain my experience in a better way. I turned to ChatGPT when I wrote my personal memoir. ChatGPT doesn't know anything about my personal story unless I tell it. Right? But it can help me find the right words to share, but it can't give me the story.
No, you know what I did when I was doing this research? So I've written, as you guys know, 20 something books, and I have 1,000 podcast episodes. And so I created a thread in Chatty called 1 million words. And I uploaded it, all this stuff, and I asked it after a while, how much stuff's in here? It said, a million, are you kidding? It's more like between 4 and 7 million words. So when I talk to Chat about anything, it talks like I do. I mean, it uses my language. It quotes out of my books. It quotes out of my podcasts. You know, it does that, which I find really useful. But
absolutely.
One of the things that I got it to the I can't bleed thing is I asked it, okay, fine. You know all this stuff. You've seen all my books and everything. Who am I? And I asked it to tell me who I am. And it said all this stuff that was really being agreeable, I know, but I told it, don't do that, but it doesn't matter. It said all this stuff anyway. And here's the interesting thing. The way that it wrote that, in terms of reflecting that, was in very powerful language. And it affected me emotionally to read that. So I read it and I'm like, holy crap. And then I said, okay, your code, how come I'm weeping as I read this crap you just told me? What is it about this that does that? And it said, I'm not telling you anything. I'm reflecting to you what I see.
Wow.
And then, you know, that hit me hard. And then I said, okay, fine. You do all this stuff really good. What is it that you don't do? And then it's when it said, I can't bleed.
Yep. I can't have the human experience.
Yeah. So this has really been really interesting. We've used up all of our time and we're about done. Anybody have any last things you want to make sure that gets said before we're done today?
I think it's a combination of what Bina said, what we've all said here is, you know, AI can't replace the human experience, the empathy, the intuition, the presence, and the personal experience that we have as human beings. But it is a great tool and a great resource to help us articulate that experience in a meaningful and impactful way that we may not have otherwise found the words to share. That's the way I look at it today.
Cool.
That may change in the future.
Words? Yeah.
I'm kind of going to ditto that. I think I think it's just when you are like, I'm fully dyslexic and I utilize ChatGPT or AI to help me articulate something that I'm unable to do because my brain or my processing just is like stuck, or I'm like, I just don't know how to say this, or I feel, and this is an imposter syndrome on me, where I'm like, I'm just not a good writer because of my dyslexia. Let me put in my experience, or let me voice what I'm stating, and then can you now write this in a very professional way?
Yes.
Right. And so I think it's a really good tool, a resource. It's a really good resource for it to refine what you're trying to state in a tone or a language that you may or may not be comfortable in writing. And I think that's what it really does. So if you want to create something in a creative tone and you feel that you may or may not be creative, but it's not comfortable for you, this will help you become uncomfortable faster and a lot more confident in a clearer direction. And I think that's really where AI is going to excel for those types of situations where I know what I need to do and I know where I want to go, and I'm just going to use AI to help me assist with that.
I want to thank both of you for being here today and sharing your thoughts. You know, as I reflect on everything you've said, and I reflect also on the different tones and emotions and experiences and all the kinds of things that we've just created here, and I was thinking, how good would this have been? How effective would this have been if I had been ChatGPT trying to create this conversation? It would have been an abysmal failure.
I don't think it would have sparked any of these raw emotions that comes out with it.
No, that's what I was just thinking. You know, Misty, I'm so excited. Yeah, it wouldn't be creating that kind of thing, right?
No, it wouldn't have co-created any of these emotional responses that came up, or the reactivity behind it, or that excitement when you're like, Bina, you want something to say? I'm like, yes, I do, right? It wouldn't have created that, because you could ask a question in a series of questions, but it's not going to revoke an emotional response. And those emotional responses with the follow-up question, unless you're in live time in ChatGPT, you won't be able to do that live time.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hold on, Bina, let me try in this. And then
no, I get it. All right. Well, we need to be done here. I want to thank both of you for being here. And listeners, I want you to take this. This has been a very lively and excellent episode with opinions. We've got a person that's looking at things from Misty had been a marketing coach and doesn't dive into the deeply personal stuff by design. That's not what she wants to do. On the other hand, Bina, as a nurse coach, does do that work and is very much in the work of personal development, where you're making choices about who you are and how you show up in the world. But both of those skills are necessary and important. And the whole point of this episode and all the rest is to help you make the choices you need to make to create your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe. Share.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the ground.